All right, everybody, this first video is going to go over the basics of SOHCAHTOA and right triangle trigonometry. You're going to try to keep this one short since this is stuff you have already learned before. So the big thing with SOHCAHTOA, which I'm sure you remember that phrase here, and the whole point of SOHCAHTOA is to help us remember which sides go with which of the trig functions. So let's say on our triangle we have theta. This would be my opposite side, my adjacent side, and then my hypotenuse is across from the right angle. So sine, right? Sine is the opposite over the hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. And tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now we also have what we call the reciprocal functions, cosecant, secant, and cotangent, which are basically just the flipped versions, right? The reciprocals of the three functions that you guys already are aware of. So cosecant is going to be the reciprocal of sine, so we flip it. Secant is the reciprocal of cosine, and cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. And we won't use those ones as often in this class, but I do want you to be aware of them and know where they come from. Okay, they're the reciprocals of the big three that you're already aware of. So when we are using SOHCAHTOA, it's typically to help us find missing sides and missing angles on specifically a right triangle. So what I like to do is label what I know, right? Here's my angle. This is my opposite side based on that angle, and this is my hypotenuse. So opposite hypotenuse sine tells us that we need to use our sine function. So sine is opposite over hypotenuse, so we're going to set this up as sine of 64 degrees equals x over 25. Now to solve, we just have to multiply each side by 25 and then calculate. Okay, when we do this, make sure your calculator is in degree mode. So when we plug this in, we find that x is going to be, roughly, I'm going to round a little bit here, 22.5. All right, for this next one, based on my angle, I have my adjacent side and I have my hypotenuse. So this is going to be cosine. We're going to set this up as cosine of 30 degrees equals 18 over x. Now, when we have our variable in the denominator, we have to move it to the numerator. What we're going to do is multiply each side by x. Then to get x by itself, we're going to divide by cosine of 30 on each side. So we end up with this calculation, 18 over cosine 30. Right, and if we plug that in, we're going to get, again, we're going to round a little bit here, about 20.8. Right, we can also find missing sides with the same kind of setup. For these ones, now it's the angle that we're looking for. So that's my theta. I have my opposite and adjacent sides, which tells me I'm doing tangent. So it's going to be tan of theta, which is what we're looking for, equals 8 over 14. Now to actually solve for theta, I need to get rid of the tangent part. To get rid of it, we take the inverse of each side. So if I do tan inverse, which is tan to the -1 is what it looks like, it cancels out my tangent here, leaving me just with theta, and then I have to do the inverse tangent of this ratio. So when I plug that into my calculator, since I'm in degree mode, I find that theta would equal, or approximately be, 29.7 degrees. All right, one more. Got my angle, I have my adjacent side, I have my hypotenuse. So we're going to set up cosine of theta equals 38 over 40. We're going to do the inverse of cosine to each side. So theta equals inverse cosine of 38 over 40, which is going to give us about 18.2 degrees. All right. Now, if you flip your notes page over, we have a couple word problems here. Now, when we do these word problems, we need to make sure that we're using the correct angle, right? Angle of elevation is going to be an angle inside of our triangle, and it's the angle that's formed between our line of sight and just if we kind of measured from our eyeballs perpendicular to the object we're looking at. So the angle of elevation is always inside, whereas the angle of depression, here's my triangle, is always outside. So our line of sight we're looking down at something, our angle of depression is going to be right here. It's measured between that line of sight and, again, a line that's perpendicular to our eyeballs. When we're setting up our pictures, we have to make sure that we're using the correct type of angle. Okay, and in these ones, we actually haven't specified what kind of angle to use. So it says that we're in a fishing boat. Okay, really bad drawing here. And we're looking up to a lighthouse. So if I'm looking up, so let's kind of pretend like I'm looking here to here. This is my right triangle that's being formed. It tells me that the angle of elevation is 5 degrees. And it tells me that this lighthouse is 161 feet above sea level. So that's just the height of my triangle. We're trying to figure out how far we are from the lighthouse. So we have the opposite and adjacent sides. So I'm going to set this up as tan of 5 degrees equals 161 over x. Just like last time, to solve for x, I need to multiply both sides by x and then divide by tan of 5. So if I do 161 divided by tan of 5, I get about 1,840.2 feet. Right? One more. This one gives us an angle of depression. It tells us that we're up in a fire tower. So let's pretend like this is our fire tower, and we're looking down and we spot this fire here. Okay, you get the idea. So I'm up here at the top. I'm looking down. This is my right angle or right triangle that's being formed. Now the angle of depression is outside. But knowing what we know about geometry, this angle has to be the same as this angle down here. So this angle is also 19 degrees. And I would prefer to use an angle inside of my triangle when I'm setting this up. Now it also tells us our fire tower is 125 feet tall, and we're trying to find the distance from the fire to the base of the tower. So we have another tangent situation here, right? It's going to be tan of 19 degrees is equal to 125 over x, multiply both sides by x, divide by tan of 19, right? We're just trying to get our variable by itself. So we end up with 125 divided by tan of 19, which is going to give us about 363 feet. Okay, so that is it for this video. Just a nice quick review over the geometry stuff that you've learned in the past with trigonometry. So this is where we're starting the unit, but we are going to go beyond what you already know about trigonometry. This is just the very beginning of it. All right, have a great day.